Season 3, coming at you like Karate's bad boy, Tournament Terror Mike Barnes, letting you know that we own you, that your karate is a joke, all while savvily negotiating for a 50% stake in your rapidly expanding dojo franchise.
That was very specific. That was very,
it was very specific, and you'll see why for a reason. I'm excited about today's guest. But before we get there, I am Rylend Grant, screenwriter, Ringo Award-winning creator of fine comics like Aberrant, Banjax, and Suicide Jockeys. The other voice in the dark, the man in the box to the right is...
David Avallone, filmmaker, comic book writer, and coffee achiever.
Love Coffee Achiever. If you missed any of our previous conversations, episodes featuring comic and film luminaries like David F. Walker, Matt Fraction, Stan Sakai, Kevin Eastman, and Rodney Barnes, who is, Winning Time just premiered. Did you see it, Avallone?
I did. I really liked the first episode.
Yeah, blew my mind. Loved it. Loved every second of it. I don't think I've laughed that hard, with the TV show in a long time. Go see Winning Time. Congrats, Rodney. But anyway, our entire catalog can be celebrated via YouTube, iTunes. I'm going to skip one for a very specific reason. But you can find it on all purveyors of worthwhile ear cracks, so double on back and check it out. Great show for you today. As I said, I'm very excited, but do you have plugs before we get started, Avallone?
I don't.
You don't have plugs? Okay, I will just say that the collected edition of my latest and greatest comic endeavor, Suicide Jockeys by Source Point Press, Tokusatsu for the discerning American action movie junkie, should be available in your local comic shop. So go on down there and check it out. But
very nice.
Let's get going. This is going to be,
ladies and gentlemen, Sean Kanan.
Hey guys, how are you?
Sean?
Howdy.
Hey Rylend, listen. I've worked in Hollywood for a while, and I think if you guys are going to have any hope at success for your show, you need to start with a more high energy opening.
It is a little low energy. It is a little sleepy, as it goes.
I like to wake everybody up. It's my professional wrestling background, but yeah.
Done.
Something has to counterbalance my absolute lack of energy. So, Sean, tell the kids at home a little bit about yourself. By way of
God. Every time I'm asked to tell people about myself, I have this little voice in my head says, "Don't sound like a douche." Well, what can I tell you? I'm originally from Western Pennsylvania, came out to Hollywood in '87 to finish my degree at UCLA in political science. I've been working, since then. Let's see. I'm currently you can see me as Deacon Sharp on The Bold and the Beautiful, which is the most syndicated show in the world. We're celebrating our 35th anniversary this year. A lot of people recognize me as Mike Barnes, Karate's bad boy, from Karate Kid 3.
Tournament
Terror. And what else can I tell you? I'm an author. I've written 3 books. Dog lover, love to cook, study foreign languages.
Yeah. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And I think that, we talk to creators on this show. And I think, one of the main reasons that I know Rylend was fascinated by your path is that transition from actor to to writer.
Yeah.
And, writing bestsellers. What prompted you to make that change, or what prompted you to expand into that area, just to get right to it?
Well, I've written for as long as I can remember. Probably the first professional thing that I ever did was a film that I produced called Chasing Holden, which Lionsgate distributed. Story about a young kid who runs away from boarding school to go find J.D. Salinger. My father, who was a very successful business guy and ran our family business, which was a large chain of jewelry stores, segued into writing himself. He's written probably 7 or 8 books. So I've always kind of been surrounded by it.
Wow.
And here's a funny thing. I was giving some thought to an event that I have tomorrow where I'm going to be addressing a group of people about my book. And I was thinking what I was going to say to them. And, it occurred to me that I initially became an actor because I wanted to, I wanted to have a voice. I wanted to express myself. I love to entertain people. But as I've gotten older, and specifically when I started writing my new book, Way of the Cobra, it really crystallized for me that the reason I became an actor is very much the reason that I became more involved with my writing. And that's because I truly love to inspire people. And I realized as I have gone down the path in my life that, acting was only one conduit to do that. And I've been having a great time and having some success doing it as a writer now. And so the genesis of my first book, what was I? I don't really know what the impetus was to write it. It's The Modern Gentleman, Cooking and Entertaining with Sean Kanan, and it's a really fun hybrid cookbook. A lot of chapters in it about how to be the best guy that you can be, letting women have a bit of a behind the curtain look at how men think. I've always been interested in motivation, inspiration, things like that. And so I started, writing stuff and slowly creating what would later become Way of the Cobra. So writing has always been a part of what I've done, but really in the last 5-6 years, I've started putting a lot of energy into it.
Sure.
Interesting. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna go off on a new thing. So why don't you?
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's interesting. I mean, we talk with a lot of creatives, obviously, and I think that a theme that is sort of developed, over whatever these 3 seasons has been, fighting this creative battle on a lot of fronts. Just going into my own story. I wrote in Hollywood for about 15 years, right? And when I first started screenwriting, it was like sold a script halfway through AFI, and then haven't had to do anything else since. But
that's great.
But for a few years, it was kind of the age of the original idea, right? If you had a great idea, you wrote a script. If it was good, you sold it, right? And did that for a couple of years, but then the financial crisis hits right around the time the writer's strike happens. Hollywood completely remakes the way they do business, right? Suddenly you can't sell an original idea to save your life, right? And what happens is the age of IP, right? It coincides with this. Everything needs to be based on something, a novel, a book, a comic book, whatever. Suddenly, a couple of lean years there, couldn't sell anything to save my life. And finally I get the bright idea, okay, well, as my screenwriting pals are kind of falling by the wayside and moving back to Pennsylvania to sell insurance and all of those things, it's like, okay, well, if they want IP, why don't I just give them IP, right? And so shifted gears and started writing short stories and novels and comic books and finding success in those mediums. And then the irony is, after that, then Hollywood comes calling and they want all of those things. And then suddenly I would say for the last probably 8 years of my career, I have been almost exclusively paid to write TV shows and films based on comic books and stories I've written. But it was that expansion that really saved me. It was if I had stuck to my guns like a lot of my friends did, and I had only been a screenwriter. I'm a screenwriter. I'm not going to mess with short stories. I'm not going to mess with comics. I'm not going to mess with fucking NFTs or anything else that everyone's doing right now. I would be back in Michigan doing God knows what. I don't know. But it was when I stopped being a writer, or when you stop just being an actor, and maybe you were never just an actor, but you know what I mean. Right. I think when all of us realize, okay, well, I need to be fighting this battle on 10 different fronts. I have something to say, and if they won't let me say it as a screenwriter,
this way, exactly.
Yeah, if they put a wall in front of me, I'm going to walk down the wall and find a door, or I'm going to go over the wall, or I'm going to kick my way through it. I'm going to find another way, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize how difficult it is to reach any level of success in the entertainment business. And for me, I've always felt that having multiple irons in the fire is a really good strategy. And, Darwin said that it's not the strongest of the species that survives, it's the most adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that. I've always had an eye towards recreating myself when necessary. And, sometimes the acting is firing on all pistons, and sometimes when that's not, the writing is, and, also my producing. I mean, I've been very busy producing as well. And what's really fun is that now, there's a nexus with all three of them, and they're all sort of working pretty well right now. And that's really exciting. But I think also that each of them probably on some level satisfy a different, they scratch a different creative itch.
Mm-hmm.
As an actor, it can be very disempowering. I mean, if you're not Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt,
yeah.
you're like another schmuck waiting for someone to hire you. And it's a very, it can be very disempowering. And if you're not careful, that sense of disempowerment turns to, frustration and resentment, and none of that's any good. As a producer, I've got the ability to, create something and hire people and make projects that I want to make. And, as a writer, you've got the creative ability that you're there from the embryonic state of the idea, hopefully to the fruition of seeing it, as a finished product. So, acting is my first love. And, there's nothing more I love than when I'm actually acting. I think a lot of people don't realize, but, most of an actor's career, unless you're very fortunate, is spent in the pursuit of work rather than the actual work. Mm-hmm. And I hate the business of acting. I really do. I just don't, auditions have almost nothing to do with acting. But that's the only real barometer people can use other than past work. And so, I like to have my kind of fingers in all three pies.
Sure.
That's another thing that comes up, over and over again is, we all are sort of subject to gatekeepers, right? I mean, whether it's comics, whether it's film, whether it's, film as a writer, film as an actor, you are waiting for a gatekeeper to give you permission to do your work, to make your movie, right, to hand you the role that you've fallen in love with, right? And that's a very frustrating place to be. It's not, it's not. We are used to this thing. You grow up and it's like, okay, well, if you work hard, then success comes. So you get what you put in, all these things. Well, yeah, those rules don't apply in film and in comics or anything. It's not always the best man or woman that gets the job, right? There's a lot of other stuff. And there is this theme that has developed over the course of these 3 seasons we've done, about kind of taking your power, right, away from the gatekeepers, right?
Right.
Going off and making your thing. I mean, I get this TV series going. We just sold to Lionsgate now, and it's with David Diggs and Raphael Casal. David from Hamilton, and
wow,
they're doing the Blind Spotting TV series on Stars. But those are 2 really interesting studies, and I think you have a lot in common with these guys, because it's like, they were actors, and they were living in the Bay Area, when they're musicians and actors, and it's like, how the hell do we, I don't know, kick our way into this business? Yeah, and all of these things, and they were sitting there waiting for someone to say you and choose them, and one of the gatekeepers to let them in the door. And finally, they just said, "Fuck this, we're going to do our own thing." I mean, with Lin-Manuel, that was how Hamilton happened. Okay, well, no, there aren't roles for people like me, like us, so let's do our own thing. And then with David and Rafa, it's like, okay, well, there aren't the roles for us. There aren't people saying the things that we think need to be said on film right now. So let's make our own film. Let's make our own TV series. And now it's going. And I feel like you have, often done the same thing. I mean, we haven't formally talked about it yet, but you have this great Emmy-winning TV show on Amazon Prime right now that is kicking ass and taking names, and I feel like I don't know, that's kind of the conclusion to your story in that sort of form, right?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think anymore, if you want to be a successful actor, you really need to develop your acumen as a producer. And if you're able to write, you need to incorporate that too. I think every actor should have sort of a pet project, a calling card that is something that they are just consistently, trying to get made. I mean, it took me 15 years to get Studio City made. It was a very long and arduous journey. I think the good news now, though, is that with the advancements in technology, even with iPhones, everybody and the internet, everybody has the ability on some level to go out and shoot something and put it up in a meaningful way where other people can see it. When I came out in '87 to start acting, I mean, people would always say, "Well, do you have any tape? Do you have any VHS tape that we can look at of something that you've done?" And if you're a young actor that hasn't gotten a break yet, you're really limited in what you can do. Maybe you're lucky enough to get into a play, you have some commercial tape, you pay to film a scene or something like that. But I tell young actors now, when they ask for some advice, I say there's no excuse now for not creating something and getting it out there. And go meet a guy that wants to be a cinematographer, go meet a guy that wants to be a lighting director, or somebody that wants to be a costume designer, and get together, and everybody brings, like, one guy brings a potato, one guy brings a carrot, you all throw it in the pot and you make stew.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I came out the same year you did. I was out in '87, and when the technology, all through the '90s, I was kind of chasing the technology of filmmaking, making it cheaper and cheaper. In '97, I made a feature film, a martial arts film, for $15,000, 15,000.00.
Wow. Who was the lead in it?
And it had a ton of action scenes in it. TJ Storm was the stunt coordinator, if you know TJ. He's really great. But I think TJ won an award for being the mocap Godzilla in recent Godzilla movies, which cracks me up. He's this beautiful, graceful man.
Yeah.
You put pajamas on him with green balls and he's Godzilla, which I think is amazing. But all that to say, there are a couple of things about that. One is, I always encourage everyone on every end of the arts to do more than one thing and to do multiple things. I think actors who don't understand how movies are made do themselves an enormous disservice.
Absolutely.
I would always tell people when they would, want to get jobs in restaurants or whatever, I was like, I've gotten more acting jobs by being a grip who they could throw in a police uniform than you will ever get waiting tables in Beverly Hills. It's just not gonna happen. But if you're a PA, someone might say, "Hey, can you play the nurse in this scene? Because we're short." Like, that's a much easier. And also, I know so many actors who came out of college and had a great acting education, and they're terrified on film sets, and they have difficulty on film sets because they walk into a room and they don't know what anyone is doing. They don't know why anyone is doing what they're doing. Whereas if you walk into a room and you can look around and know who everyone is, and everyone's doing, your acting does not suffer from
know everybody's job as best you can.
I just feel like
and it's all interconnected too. I mean, you need to have somewhat of a working knowledge of why things are being lit the way they are, how to find your light, what lens the DP is using, because it determines some of your performance, how you want to perform. I mean, if you're on a super tight lens and you're performing like you're at the Amundsen Theater for the people in the back, it ain't gonna work. So
I had a film acting teacher once, and I think he showed me there's a shot in High Noon that starts relatively close on Gary Cooper. It's the most famous shot in the movie, and then tracks up into the sky.
Wow.
Close up, Gary moves his eyes from left to right.
Yeah.
That's all he does. When the
Yeah.
camera's 30 feet away and in the air, he takes his hat off and wipes the sweat off his brow with his arm.
Yep.
It's the same amount of picture being moved as his eyeballs was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he has calculated, okay, the camera is 30 feet away from me. Now the big physical gesture that we read from across.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that, if you don't think about that, if you don't think about the camera is an inch away from my face, I do this, the camera's 30 feet away from my face, I do all of this other stuff to make, to get attention. It's a very technical job. And the more you know about it, the better you are at it in general.
Absolutely.
Per being a writer, it's all storytelling. And if you're good at it, you're focusing on the aspect of your gig, of your job that is that you are telling a story and you are part of telling a story.
Yeah, I think one of the other really huge assets of refining your ability to write as an actor is it comes into play when you get a script. Now, you have to have the latitude by the director or the powers that be to allow you to play with the dialogue, but I can't tell you how many times I have rewritten dialogue and not only increased the size of my performance, but improved my performance.
Sure.
Because, I dialogue is something that's kind of my forte. And if you have the ability to do that, boy, you can really do yourself a huge service. I mean, you don't want to be that guy that walks onto set and insult the other actor you're working with and the director and the writer and say, I've rewritten this whole scene. But, I am, I'll tell you what, when I was in 4th grade, I was doing Romeo and Juliet. And I swear to God, I asked the teacher if I could change one of the lines. And so that's where it started. I was already rewriting Shakespeare in 4th grade. So,
well, look, not all that Shakespeare stuff plays well.
Yeah, that guy, what a hack.
Well, he wasn't writing for your 4th grade class in the 70s. But yeah, I always point out that Harrison Ford's 2 big movie star making moments were written by him.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Shooting the Arab Swordsman and Raiders of the Lost Ark and I Love You, I Know in The Empire Strikes Back, which are the huge moments in both of those movies, are Harrison Ford on set saying, I don't want to say that. I want to say this. I don't want to do that action. I want to do this action. And, yes, Lucas and Spielberg made him a star, but those are the moments that really made him a star.
Yeah. And I think the thing with an actor is, our job is to take what is on the script and do our best to elevate it to being the absolute best it can be. And, normally that comes, from performance, but sometimes it comes from, tweaking stuff.
Yeah. And look, we all know there's as much bad writing as there is bad acting, and you get people writing things that they don't know that better than they. Yeah,
but I don't always think it's even a function of it being bad writing. I think there are times when you can write something that really, as the actor in that role, you think you can take something and just make it that much better. I don't always, I don't want to disrespect writers and say, oh, it's because, normally I got to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. It's not that. It's just, I'm constantly thinking how I can, how my character can win. I mean, that's what it's about as an actor. As human beings, we all want to get what we want. We use different actions to get them, and we're faced with obstacles. Same as with the character that you're playing. You've got kind of this macro objective, and within the scenes and even beats within the scene itself, you're trying to accomplish different things. And if you come up with a way that you think, wow, I might be able to try and accomplish this better by making this little tweak, then, it's good for the film, and it's good for your character.
Well, here's the thing: is a script is not a finished product, right? It is a blueprint for something else, right? And like any blueprint, right? It works great on paper,
Right.
and then you get down on the ground, and it's like, okay, well, this this lot isn't as level as we thought it was, so we got to change this up.
Right.
This wall thing's not going to work for this reason. We got to adjust. We got to adjust. You're adjusting on the fly, right? And
Right.
And actors are in such an interesting position because a writer is away from it and is imagining a world. Well, okay,
Right.
now we're actually creating the world, and the director has 45 million things on
that he's worried about. Exactly.
But you are actually living the part, living the role, right? And and in some cases it's okay, well, you've been doing it for a couple of weeks or a couple of months on this film. Sometimes it's okay, well, you've been playing this character for 5 years, and who am I to tell you what your character John would do in this scene, right? And here's the thing is like, you're not always going to be right, but having lived in this character's shoes, in this character's psyche for so long, if I'm not open to listening to what you have to say, we talk about this a lot here. It's like the best idea wins, right? Anyone who thinks that they have a monopoly on the best idea is an idiot. It's something Avallone says. It's like if
I agree.
Yeah, best idea wins, and if it's the craft service guy, amazing. If it's the actor, even better.
Absolutely.
A friend of mine was a PA on Hill Street Blues, and when Michael Conrad passed away, the main characters, I think it was Bochco, got everyone together and said, how should we deal with this?
Right.
And my ex-girlfriend, who was the PA, said, I think he should die having sex with Sharon Lawrence. And everybody went, oh man, that is freaking awesome. We're doing
I remember the scene.
Yeah. And again, that was Stephen Bochco listening to a PA and going, oh yeah, that is absolutely the best story beat. And to me, it's the greatest part of the job, because I've been in that situation where you're on a set and you feel like no one's helping you, and you feel like nothing is getting better, and every problem is being magnified. So the minute someone says, here, let me make this better,
right.
Go, oh man, that's what a relief.
That's manna from heaven, right?
Yeah. And also, and then, and obviously down the road, you be gracious about it and you say, yeah,
sure,
they came up with that because it was brilliant.
Yeah, sure.
But,
So if I can sort of take things in another direction slightly and go into specifics of your books, but more of there was this, I don't know what to say. At some point, you're writing, yes, and you are creating TV series and telling stories also, but you seem to have this it's this second career as like a coach, a motivator, an inspirer of men and women, and that's really what that's really what Way of the Cobra is about, right? And that's what Modern Gentleman was about in a way. It is, it's really your story of okay, well, you're telling us your story of this is how I bettered myself, right? And if you can take something from it, great. But I thought that was very interesting. And then and then I'm looking online, and you're releasing Way of the Cobra, which you can talk about more here. But then also you have a motivational retreat associated with the book in Peru, which seems mind blowing and awesome. So how did that turn come about? And tell us about it.
Well, I guess the genesis of that was shortly after my 50th birthday. I found myself at a place where I had experienced some pretty good success in my life. I had had a couple of epic failures, some of which were rather public. And, I was looking in the mirror going, okay, what's next, man? What's your next act here? And I wasn't readily coming up with an answer. I was 35 pounds overweight. I had no prospects for acting work. And I was interacting with some old demons. And I was like, man, I gotta do something different here. And I got to do it really quickly. And so rather than wait for my ship to come in, I decided I was going to build the damn ship. Mm-hmm. Had to figure out how. And so I started doing some thinking about the times in my life when I felt absolutely invincible, when I just couldn't lose. And one of those times was when I got the role of Mike Barnes in the Karate Kid 3 from an open call of over 2,000 people. And so I started doing some things very differently, and very quickly I started experiencing some tremendous results. And in that year, I lost the 35 pounds. I wound up eventually getting Studio City on the air, which eventually won me an Emmy. And I finished my second book, Success Factor X, which became an Amazon new release bestseller. And I don't say that to I don't say that as a way of look what I did. It's a way of saying look what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started putting together all of these strategies and the philosophy that I was using, and I decided I was going to put it in the construct of me being a sensei and you're a student in my dojo, the dojo of life, Cobra Life. Cobra is an acronym formed from the words character, optimization, balance, respect, and abundance. And I divided the chapters up into belts, and I used some autobiographical stories to illustrate some of the points. And I tell you, I say this all the time, but I do podcasts because sure, I want to sell books, but I want to get the word out there because I honestly believe with every fiber of my being that the information in this book is transformative. The tagline of this book is Unleash Your Inner Badass. Everyone has one. And, look, I also say, before you think I'm, on top of some mountain in Kathmandu, levitating 3 feet above the ground, I'm a guy that's made every one of these mistakes half a dozen times over. That's a lie, not half a dozen times, a dozen times. And, if I can act as a sensei, which is a teacher, helping to point out some of the less obvious pitfalls as other people make their journey to achieve their success, I want to do that. And I say at the very, very beginning of the book, look, I got good news and I got bad news. And if you're like me or Don Corleone from The Godfather, you insist on getting the bad news first. So here it is. I said, I don't have the answer. All right. I don't have a magic, a silver bullet or a magic elixir that's going to immediately transform you into this uber successful beast that we all want to become, which in my book I call a cobra. Here's the good news. It's like the Zen koan. How did the ship get in the bottle? It was already there. Everything you need is already inside of you. You just have to figure out how to let it out. And so what I do in the book is teach you how to let it out.
That's great. I appreciate the mission. I mean, it is sort of like in line with the mission of this show, I think. I mean, this show grew out of Avallone and I and some others doing how-to panels at Comic Cons.
Right.
And I swerved. I had been writing in Hollywood for, I don't know, a dozen years or so. And my, you know how it is in Hollywood. I mean, you can write maybe 5 different kinds of movies, right? They want them written a certain way.
Sure.
And I got pretty damn good at writing those movies. I can
Right.
write them in my sleep, right? I mean, they bought this house, but I hate to be the guy who complains about getting paid to write movies, but like I got tired of it a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like,
You don't want to become derivative of your own work.
yeah,
I completely understand that.
Yeah, I was not inspired. I was not excited. And the worst thing was that my work got stale. That was that was the biggest deal. And so the part of moving into comics, I mean, of course it's generating IP and they won't let me tell my story in Hollywood, so let me tell it in another format and in that way. But really in comics you could do whatever you want, however you want. As long as it was good, you were going to find an audience for it. You were going to find a publisher. And so I was able to let loose. I was able to purge all of my creative demons and kind of go crazy and have fun. And it sort of reinstilled, my love of writing and creating. So that was very important for me, but I didn't just dive into it. I had to learn how to do this shit. Right. And so, I've been doing it, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years now in the comic business, but so 6, 7, 8 years ago, I was the guy sitting in a panel at a Comic-Con trying to figure out how to do this stuff. and I'm listening to creators, give me how-tos, and I'm getting some good information. I'm getting a lot of really bad information, right?
Yeah.
And it took me a very long time to sort through all of it. And at some point, I had all of the
right
good
information,
the right information, right?
Right.
And it empowered me, and it got me to where I wanted to go. But now I'm sitting on this treasure trove, and it felt so selfish not to share it with the rest of the world. And so
Right.
maybe it'll be a book at some point. I don't know that I have the time to do it at this point to write a how-to book, but it would probably be, it would probably be a pretty, a pretty good one. But really what it translated to is like, okay, well, I have all this information now, and people are still sitting in those panels, and they're getting bad information. And so
Right.
why don't I do a panel at San Diego Comic-Con and get up in front of 250 people who want to be doing this stuff,
Right.
and won't be doing this stuff unless someone inspires them, unless someone gives them the right information. And along the way, I met people like David. I met, other creators who had the right info, and they had the right attitude, and they were going to be inspiring to creators. And so I brought them with me. And so let's get 5 of these people up in front of a con panel,
Right.
and let's inspire the hell out of these people and tell them how this is possible. All you have to do is this, and all you have to do is one foot in front of the other, and all that stuff. And so I love the mission, and I think
Thank you.
When I reached out to you to do this, that was what I saw, like a kindred spirit.
A kindred spirit, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I talk in the beginning of the book about how my sincerest hope is that everyone who reads the book will eventually choose to become a quote-unquote sensei themselves and go on to inspire others by teaching them what they learn from the book. But each one of their stories is going to be different because it's going to be predicated on their individual life experience, some of which is probably more interesting or compelling, or has the ability to affect a specific individual or group of individuals, maybe even more than mine does. And I talk about how that never-ending circle of becoming inspired and going on to inspire others so they in turn can inspire others ad infinitum, that is at the core of the way of the Cobra.
Someone had walked up to me at San Diego and said that they had done a successful Kickstarter,
right?
Because they had seen Rylend and I do a panel on Kickstarters, and it
you
made
inspired them
to do their own thing. And that's all you want from that experience. If
it's gone even further than that, because I have had there was a guy, Omar Mora, who was sitting in one of my panels a few years back, and we'll give our spiel, and there's usually not enough time afterwards for all the questions that need to be answered. So I always tell everybody, hey, we're going to be standing outside for about an hour. Come see us. Any questions you have? And this guy, Omar, very smart guy, comes up to me. He's like, hey, I'm working on this comic book. He's shown it to me on an iPad. What advice do you have? What do you think I should do with this? And we talked for maybe about a half hour there. I gave him a card. We corresponded over email. I helped him a little bit with this or that. And, long story short, comic was released, big success. I think it's got a movie option now, all of those things. So that's great. And I played some tiny, thimble role in that thing. However, the real amazing thing was a few years later, I was able to have Omar on a panel as a creator at San Diego Comic-Con. And, again, like a few years before, he was sitting on the other side being like, how the hell do I do this? That makes it all worth it,
One of the things I talk about in the book is that it's really important to be of service. And one of the best ways of doing that is to help people without any thought to, any kind of gain or anything for yourself. I mean, you do it because it's the right thing to do. And I really believe that it doesn't just create good karma for you, but I think, if we all lived our life that way, if we all did our best to go out of our way to help others when we can, the world would be a much better place. And, it's one of those things that's, it has to start on a grassroots level. It has to start with you. And that's terrific that you were doing that. And you know what, you'll probably have now helped take a really creative guy, helped him to, elevate his position, and hopefully he will remember that you did that and in turn pass it on to the next young kid.
Yeah.
Pay it forward.
every time I do something like that, every time I spend an hour on the phone with someone that wants to break into movies or comic books, or someone's kid who's about to go to my alma mater,
Right.
give them advice on that. They all say, like, why are you doing this? And I say, people helped me.
Exactly.
And like, everything good that happened to me happened because someone turned back and reached out a hand. And you have to turn back and reach out a hand. The worst people in the world are the ones that pull up the ladder after them. And I have no respect for that. It's
Absolutely.
like the people who are like, no, it was hard for me, so it should be hard for you. It's like, no, it was hard for me, so it should be easy for you.
Listen,
I learned shit, so you don't have to go through it.
I mean, look, you help somebody up, and if they're not able to get themselves up to the next rung or have firm footing on where you help them up, the universe will deal with them and send them back to the back of the line to go learn a little more or something. But you don't have to be the arbiter of whether or not they have to go through necessarily the same exact path and difficulty as you do. Believe me, if they're going to make it in this business or any other business, they will encounter their challenges and obstacles. It is irrefutable and it's inescapable.
It's but they don't have to walk 2 miles to school in the snow like we did. It's fine. I can give them a ride in my car just that one time. And hope they do better next time.
Absolutely.
I did want to ask before I let Rylend loose on the Karate Kid fan mania. What was the process of? I mean, I know you said 15 years. You don't have to tell the whole story, but what was the process? What was the break that got your show on the air? That got Studio City on the air?
I guess if I had to plot out the benchmarks of what happened, I was asked to collaborate on a TV series with somebody. Mm-hmm. And in this case, I did have some ulterior motives, but in a good way. I was going to convince these guys that really what they needed to do was get on board with my show. And so they initially hired me for their show, and I very quickly started turning creatively the vision that they saw. So we got a little money right away to start developing mine and refining it into more of a package. I then went to a director who I'd worked with in several films named Timothy Woodward Jr. I went to him ostensibly to go talk about doing bigger roles in his film, and we somehow got on the conversation about how he was interested in television. And I said, well, I think I've got a project that could be interesting for you. And he said, listen, if I like it, I'll fund it. And we've all heard that before. And 8 weeks later, we were in production. He liked it. My wife, Michelle, has been absolutely indispensable as a producer, as a writer. So, really it was a function of, joining forces with a couple of other very talented people. And, I was pretty tenacious. I mean, I have not given up on it. And, I was fortunate to assemble a really talented cast, a lot of whom I've worked with before, many of whom have won, numerous awards and are recognizable actors, and they were willing to do this for, peanuts to support me. And the material really appealed to them. And, once we started getting feedback from the people that had seen it, and we got nominated for 19 Emmys our first year. And, that certainly does make things easier when you've got that little cachet, but it's still a labor of love. I mean, it's still, listen, believe me, I'm carrying in boxes to craft service. I'm handing the grip stuff in between doing my scenes. I mean, it's whatever needs to get done. And that's pretty much everyone else's attitude who's on the show.
I see you've got Sarah Brown is on the show.
Yeah.
Who I wrote for VR Troopers back in the day.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, Sarah plays my half sister on the show. She's absolutely terrific. And we've got, Carolyn Hennessy is on the show, and Tristan Rogers is on the show. He won the Emmy for Best Supporting Actor last year. My beautiful stepdaughter, Juliet Vega, is on the show and plays my daughter.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, we've got just some tremendous talent on the show, and really excited for everybody to see these new episodes that are coming up. They should be up and available on Amazon Prime on or around March 25th. We have 6 new episodes.
And that's the second season, third?
This is the second season.
Okay. Yeah, Sarah and I just reconnected on Instagram because I posted a picture of her action figure.
Oh my God,
Troopers.
so cool.
And I didn't even tag her in it. So I just said, she was my favorite when I worked on this show. And she was like, hi, David, in the comments.
That's so cool.
Yeah, she's delightful. I remember liking her very much.
Yeah.
VR Troopers.
Working together.
Yeah. She's terrific.
Rylend, are there questions you need to ask?
There are questions I need to ask. I warned you about this coming in.
You got about 10 more minutes to ask them.
Yeah. I am, as the listeners know, I am the biggest Karate Kid guy in the entire universe, world, all of that stuff. And so now I'm sitting down with Mike Barnes. I have questions, I guess, both for Sean and for Mike. If you don't mind. So just, I mean, there's the general question, right? I mean, it's like, as an actor, you sort of dream of being a part of something that's like truly iconic, right?
Yeah.
Just talk to us about what that is like. I mean, this thing is bigger than, it's bigger than Jesus. You know what I'm saying?
Let's
not go that far. But you know what I mean? I mean, this is like this is one of the franchises, right?
I grew up. I would run home from elementary school to go have lunch and watch Happy Days, and that's where I first was introduced to Pat Morita, who played Arnold. I was a guy that bought a ticket to go see The Karate Kid and The Karate Kid 2 in the theater.
Yeah.
And so years later, finding myself filming one of the lead roles in the backlot was truly surreal.
How old were you?
I was 22.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's amazing.
And stepping into a franchise that is, an internationally known franchise that's part of the tapestry of not just American, but worldwide cinema is, that's something very special. Now with the huge success of Cobra Kai, it has completely reignited interest in an entirely new generation, and it's reignited interest from a nostalgic fact from guys our age who grew up watching it. And so, that's really amazing. I mean, this is a character I played 35 years ago. I've gone on to do many, 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 many other things since then. And to have a character that you did 35 years ago still have some relevance is not the norm.
Right.
So I'm incredibly flattered by it. I love the Karate Kid Cobra Kai fans. They have been wonderful to me. And I'm really fortunate that I'm kind of a part of 2 big fan bases. I've got the soap opera fans, General Hospital, Young and the Restless, and Bold and the Beautiful. Bold and the Beautiful is the most syndicated show in the world, and so again, all over the world, I've been able to be on people's television screens, and it's been really a very special and very, very fortunate thing for my career.
Yeah, my second job ever in Hollywood, I was rewriting Robert Mark Kamen, and if I ever felt like I had made it, quote unquote.
Wow, that's a pretty good name to be rewriting.
Yeah, the 8-year-old inside of me was going berserk. I think it was that, and a few years later, I sat down with Wes Craven, and it was maybe there have been some other moments too, but where I'm just sitting down and I'm looking around and I'm like, wow, this is weird. This is so there are stories, and you could tell me if these are true. Did you intimidate Ralph Macchio in the audition? Is that how you got the part?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How did that go?
Well, John Avallone, who had directed Rocky, won the Academy Award, who had directed the first 2 Karate Kid films, was walking up and down the line of all the hopefuls at the open call, stopped in front of me. I talk about it in the book. I say most times in life, moments that define your life are the critical mass of a lot of buildup. But when they actually unfold, they unfold generally in an instant. Mm-hmm. And this was one of those moments. I knew I had about 10 seconds at best to get this guy's attention and to convince him that I was the guy for the role. He asked me to do an improv with him and intimidate him, and I did. And John was a diminutive fellow. He was very small, and I did it, and I was like, oh my God, did I go too far? And he looked at me for a minute and he said, okay, I buy it. He set me inside, and I went inside, and there's Ralph Macchio. They had constructed a set. They asked me to intimidate him, and there really weren't any lines. I just kind of backed him into a corner. And again, I was like, uh-oh, did I go full psycho? And Ralph kind of cracked a smile. And after saying, get him off. And, a lot of people don't know this, but I wasn't the first choice for the role. They hired somebody else. The kid worked for about a week and didn't work out. And then they brought me back in and hired me.
And Ralph is what, 10 years older than you at this point? I mean,
I don't think he's 10 years because I'm 55, okay. But Ralph is turned 60. He's about 5 years.
Yeah, so he's about 5 years. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's funny. Great story. Okay, so lightning round. I'm trying to do this quick for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Was Daniel's karate in fact a joke?
Was Daniel's karate in fact a joke? I mean, no. I mean, it just, listen, Daniel's karate wasn't a joke because he epitomized the true essence of what martial arts is about. Mike Barnes absolutely did not.
Okay.
Mike Barnes was, I believe, a superior fighter. He was a national champion. He was, scoring left and right on Daniel until Terry Silver told him to, get a point, lose a point, all of that stuff. And then, of course, Mike wasn't the smartest, sharpest tool in the shed. He was baffled by a kata, but
Yeah, I mean that's my next question. How utterly confused was Mike by that kata that Daniel threw at him in the end? Just take us into his mind there. Like, what is he thinking? Like, is this guy dancing?
Yeah, he was thoroughly confused, and ultimately it resulted in his demise.
Yeah. So final question in the lightning round. Does Mike still own 50% of the Cobra Kai Dojo franchise?
Well, he doesn't currently own it, that's for sure. But the question is, was Mike in an actionable position against Terry Silver?
Yeah.
And was the entire deal predicated on Mike winning? And if you remember, Mike, 17-year-old Mike, wisely said, and I get that in writing. So presumably, Mike, as an adult now, has a contract somewhere.
Wow. So I mean, this could all be legislated in season 5 of a very popular series on Netflix, right?
You never know. You got to just keep the faith and keep watching.
You never know. Yeah. And so the final thing before we kind of close out here, comic book pitch. Now it is like an ongoing joke here. Avallone and I are both comic creators, and we do these interviews just like you do. And, I do a couple dozen every year. And the question we always get asked is, okay, well, what character do you want to write, more than anything, right? And everybody expects like a Marvel or a DC character. I really want to write Superman. I really want to write Iron Man. And the first couple of times I got asked that question, I would kind of fumble through it like, oh, I guess Moon Knight would be nice or whatever. And so after maybe, I don't know, third, fourth, fifth time I got asked that question, I stopped and I'm like, okay, well, I need to actually figure out an answer for this question. And for me, it's not those guys. I'll take the Marvel DC jobs, of course. But for me, it was always, Karate Kid is my favorite piece of media ever. I wanted to tell a Johnny Lawrence story. Like, Johnny Lawrence is my spirit animal. Give me the Cobra Kai comic book over
Dave, you believe this crap? The guy has me on his show. He sets up this long fucking pitch. I think
then
he's going to say
it's the
Mike
other guy.
Barnes, and it's Johnny Lawrence.
No,
It's
but
totally bullshit.
no. But what didn't occur to me until right this minute is that, you know, particularly with where Cobra Kai is headed right now, the IDW has already done the Johnny Lawrence story. What the world needs right now, and what I think I need, and I think what you need too, is I think that IDW needs to come and hire the two of us to do the Mike Barnes story.
I love that. I think it's awesome. Here's a pitch. Here's a pitch. So alone Mike Barnes, he trains day and night in martial arts, and by night he goes out as a vigilante and he encounters dangerous individuals. But rather than beat the crap out of them, he's actually an anger management counselor, and he gives them counseling.
There we go.
He has hugs for them. No, but here's the thing: is like, so, you know, so let's say, we're not going to confirm or deny anything, but let's say that we get into where Mike Barnes is today in future seasons of Cobra Kai. I would like to know what has happened. You know, you're talking about 35 years ago, right now.
Yeah.
So what happened between him losing that tournament and now? I think that there are a million stories to be told. So I think that IDW should throw a big chunk of change at you and I to figure that out.
I love that idea. My phone is available as we speak. I've got call waiting, so literally they could call me as we're doing this.
All right. I'm going to contact IDW, and you may have a call.
They probably have to get the rights from Sony, but you know.
Well,
but you know, you could just do one called Sensei Mike.
Yeah, well, no,
right?
No. Here's the thing: is IDW has the Cobra Kai license. They did a Johnny Lawrence comic
book.
They
have the license for all of
it. And they don't know what to do with it right now.
What are you guys waiting for? Your comic book's a joke. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. So IDW, expect a call from Sean and I very soon. We're gonna figure this out.
Let's go pitch it. I'm in.
Awesome. All right.
Hey, you guys, I got a jet because I got another one of these. I want to thank you both so much. It really was a pleasure talking to both of you guys.
Our pleasure. Just tell us again, the book is out now.
The book is out right now, Way of the Cobra. If you would like to get a signed copy of it, you can get it at wayofthecobra.com. And if not, you can get it on Amazon or get the ebook on Kindle. I promise you, if you take the action that's in the book, you are going to dramatically see a difference in your life. Unleash your inner badass.
Awesome.
All right, guys. You guys
so
take care. Wishing you all the best. All right.
Yep.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, John.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All righty.
I think Sean is still on. No, there we go.
So let's wrap up. Rylend, where can the kids find you, and what do you got coming up?
I'm still teeming with energy and love from hanging out with Mike Barnes for an hour. So give me a second to get my stuff together. I think Sean and I are going to write a Cobra Kai for IDW. So
I think that's a great idea.
So stay tuned.
Me personally, I think Mike Barnes is either a superhero. He's either a stuntman or like a C-level Marvel superhero.
There you go. Yeah,
I think Mike Barnes becomes a stuntman, and then if he's good, he's like, you know, he goes from henchman to stuntman to eventually, you know, someone makes him. I'm spacing on a guy. If someone wasn't already playing the Punisher really well, I would say Mike Barnes is the Punisher. That's casting right there.
Yeah, I would buy it. He was certainly headed in that direction. But to wrap up, I am at Rylend Grant on all forms of social media. That's RYLENDGRANT. I always spell it because it's not a real name. My parents drunkenly saddled me with it, and now I have to spell it for you. But my books, the Ringo Award-winning Aberrant and the 4-time Ringo-nominated Banjax, are available in fine comic shops everywhere, and on Amazon. No longer on Comixology, RIP, unfortunately. My astral projection thriller, The Jump, and my Fargo-esque crime drama, The Peacekeepers, are available via BackerKit right now. So if you go to thejump2.backerkit.com, that's the jump one word and the number 2, thejump2.backerkit.com, you can go there, and that's it's a one-stop Rylend Grant shop, con exclusives, autographed copies of everything. So if you're a fan or if you have a mild interest in anything, go get that. As I said at the top of the show, the collected edition of my latest and greatest, the Tokusatsu Joint Suicide Jockeys, is available in fine comic shops right now via Source Point Press. So go out and get that, and look for Mike Barnes Cobra Kai comic via IDW in I don't know.
We'll call it the title. Barnes is noble.
There you go. you should start a service where you just title things because
I really should. I really should because it is my forte. I can be found at davidavallonefreelance.com. Elvira Meets Vincent Price #5 just dropped last week, and it is still available, and it sets up the next series, which is called Elvira in Horrorland. #1 drops in late May, and that will be, we don't know how many of those will be yet, so buy it. So there will be 8 of them instead of 4 of them. And then in July, it looks like my creator-owned comic with Kevin Eastman is landing at Scout Comics. That's Drawing Blood #1, which should be out in late July, early August. We haven't quite nailed that down yet. That's it. Thank you so much for joining us for the Writer's Block. I think number 61. I want to say number 61, but I'm not sure.
It is 61, yeah.
Take care.
Your karate a joke.
If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to smash that like button. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or other fine purveyors of ear crack, please leave us a 5-star review. And wherever you're watching and or listening, subscribe. We'll see you back here next week for more madcap hijinks on the Writer's Block.